Thank you for finding some time here to talk to me. I
Hmm.
watched a bunch of your stuff on social media, and when Misha sent the list of comedians from the Columbus Comedy Festival, I was like, okay, definitely want to talk to her. So yeah,
Great.
glad we got this figured out.
Thank you.
Um, so yeah, just some like stuff about you to start out. First question is just why comedy? What kind of did you always know you were kind of funny? Was it more the performance aspect that drew you to it? What kinda got you into it?
Well, I always liked funny movies and scenarios, and sarcasm was a big part of my upbringing. And, we had 5 kids and like, 7 people in one household. It was always something going on. But as far as like comedy goes, I loved the show Whose Line Is It Anyway growing up, and then thought I wanted to do improv because of that show, right? And so in college, I was like, oh, I'm going to move to Chicago. I'm going to do improv in Second City, and had all these big thoughts as far as that went. And then I saw live stand up for the first time, and I was like, oh, I can do this. Like this is what it is. This is way better. And after that, there was a guy who came and performed at my college, and he was offering like stand-up comedy classes. And so I took one of his classes, and then from there, well, actually, my first ever time on stage was at a student comedy competition, stand-up competition at the university. So my first time on stage was in front of like 400 students at the University of Toledo, and it was great. It was incredible.
Good.
And
Students
it
college students, that's a tough audience to start out with.
Well, when you're also a college student, it's your peers, so it's not that bad. But yeah, that was like my first time ever on stage, and then shortly after that is when the guy came through doing the classes. So I took his class, and then yeah, kind of just kept going from there.
Nice. Yeah, you mentioned the Whose Line Is It Anyway being like an early kinda inspiration for you. Was there anybody else in stand-up in particular who was kind of a model for you early on?
Early on is tough to say because I didn't know anything about stand up before I started doing it. Like I had seen a couple famous people, Ralphie May, Kevin Hart, Dane Cook, like people like that. Dane Cook was the first comedian I ever listened to. His Harmful If Swallowed album. Oh my God, I can still say every single word to that album to this day. And then Brian Regan was the first special I ever saw. His I Walked on the Moon special. And he was so expressive and funny and without even saying anything. So I'd say my two huge influences at first were Dane Cook and Brian Regan.
Nice. Yeah, and then more, just a recent kinda life change you had with the move to New York. What has
Mhm.
that been like? What has it been like performing there versus in the Midwest?
Honestly, the biggest difference, any place you go, there's local references, whatever, whatever. But the biggest difference I've seen is just the lifestyle change. Like most people here don't have cars. Most people here aren't married. Most people here don't have kids. So that's like your kids and marriage are the main two things people want to talk about in the Midwest because everybody's married with kids. And so it's just like finding ways to relate to people who have completely different lifestyles than you do. That's probably the biggest one. And then the other huge difference is just the amount of time. So I come from the road. I come from working clubs in the Midwest for the last 10 years. So I'm used to doing a minimum of 25 minutes up to an hour. And I had to basically relearn how to do a 15-minute set. So that's also been a big difference here.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. I have my, like, best friend at college is from Evanston, Illinois, and I go to school in Boston now, and she had a very similar she's like, "Everything just the East Coast just works at a different pace." It's definitely an adjustment there. And yeah, I, saw in some of your content that there was this pharmacy school
Yeah,
effort
that's
early on.
that's what I
So
went to
into the
college
stand-up
for.
pipeline, yeah. How did you end up kinda shifting gears there?
Well, I mean, I went to school to be a pharmacist, and then I didn't get in. I retook classes, and I just could not get my GPA where it needed to be. So then I switched majors to math education, and then from there, I hated all of my education classes. I'm very good at math, loved the math part of it, but I was like, I do not want to be a teacher. So I was kind of in this like middle ground where I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and that's kind of when I found stand up.
Yeah,
And then
great.
then I dropped out of school. So
It's working out for you, yeah.
we're trying, you know?
And then, yeah, I mean, thinking back to, like, getting started and things like that, what would be kind of a piece of advice you could give to your 13-year-old self? And then
Oh,
also, what
damn.
would be a piece of advice you think you need from your 13-year-old self nowadays?
That's a tough one. 13 was a tough age, man. 13. I'd probably tell 13-year-old me, man, I wasn't ready for this. 13, I was in 8th grade. Life was kind of crazy. I had just gotten a boyfriend. I'm like trying to think of what was going on when I was 13. You know what? It's probably the same advice I try to give myself every day today, where it's like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, whatever you think is ruining your life right now is not going to matter. So just chill. Just relax. Everything's going to be fine. Nothing matters. It's literally fine.
There you go. And then what would be something you think you sometimes need to hear from that 13-year-old self?
Damn. I don't know, man. I was a crazy kid. Probably just to have more fun. You know, it's really funny. I got sober 5 years ago, and I thought I was always this like really spontaneous, really crazy, like fun loving person. And I was just drunk for a decade. So,
Hmm,
like, now I'm realizing, like, oh, no, no, I'm very type A. So, 13-year-old me would probably tell me to chill out in the opposite way, where it's like, hey, man, just go do something. Go for a walk. Go write a silly song. Go dance somewhere. You know, like, not everything's the end of the world.
there you go, yeah. There that little the inner, like, young person in us is always, like, a little bit more helpful. I'm, like, in my senior year now, and I'm getting nostalgic, like, every other day. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's coming up a lot recently, so that's what kind of inspired that question from me for sure. And then also, what are some unique challenges you faced as a woman in comedy? And then how has that also helped inform your material and helped kind of grow your career?
I'm going to be 1,000% honest with you. I don't really like this question. This is something I feel like women in comedy get asked so much, and it gets frustrating for me personally because it's like Amy Schumer said it. She was on like a late night show one time, and she said just being a woman is harder in general. Like I think that's across the board. It's not just in comedy; it's in life, you know. And for me personally, it's I'd say I've gotten more shade and disrespect from audience members than I have from like industry people. And I've also had the privilege of coming up. Like I started comedy in 2012, where I mean the 2010s were not a woke time at all,
Yeah.
but where we've come in the last 12 years has been very, very progressive, especially for women and people of color and LGBTQ communities. So like I feel privileged in the sense that at least conversations are happening now. Like I couldn't imagine trying to do this in the 80s when it was like stay home, take your pills and raise these kids, you know. Um but I will say, as far as the industry goes, right? I will say there are some places I'll play in the Midwest or whatever that in the South where they aren't sure that women are allowed to talk or are funny or you always run into that, and it's always an audience member coming up and be like, I don't really find women funny, and that's just the more annoying thing than anything is that uninformed audiences or people who see comedy once a year think that they want to tell you, oh, I was so surprised that a girl could be funny. And it's just ignorant and it's annoying. And it's one of those things where I'm like, you know what? You get to the point where you're like, yeah. I used to explain it to people where I'd be like, it's a numbers game. Like if you see one stand-up show a year, you might see a female comic once every 3 years. And if
Yeah.
she doesn't talk about things that you like, you automatically think all women aren't funny. But the 15 men that you saw, if one of them wasn't funny, you still had 14 others, you know? So when people say stuff like that to me, I just brush it off, and they're like, I don't like women, or I don't think women are funny. I'm like, okay, you don't have to. Like, that's fine. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
I
No, I
literally
think
never
that
have to
yeah,
see you
it's
again,
great.
you
It's a
know?
waste of your time to
It
explain.
is.
Yeah.
You'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
No, but it is heartening to kinda hear that the industry has been more, um, not a volatile place as compared to, like, audience members. I mean, yeah, you're always gonna get,
I think
like,
I've and
uninformed audience members, but
I want to
yeah.
make it clear that I might have a very privileged stance there. I have been lucky not to experience a lot of the things that other women have experienced as far as like harassment and discrimination and whatever else it might be. Sure, there's plenty of lineups at clubs where I'm like, we can only have one woman on this lineup, and that gets annoying and frustrating. But I don't know, just I just look at it as like maybe I just keep working. You know what I mean? Just work
Yeah.
hard so that you're undeniably good and they are actually hurting by not having you on their lineup, regardless of your gender, you know?
There you go, yeah. No, that's a great perspective. That's very sports in my brain, like, the just work harder. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And then, yeah, you mentioned, like, there have been certain audiences, certain gigs in certain places with different reactions. Is there any gig you've done so far that kind of stands out as, like, your favorite, and why?
I have said this since the beginning of comedy and the beginning of time. Small town gigs are my favorite. I don't mean like Cleveland, Ohio, not being New York City. I mean like the middle of nowhere, Michigan. Like those tiny little I did a show in Davison, Michigan at a county fair that was incredible. And I love gigs like that because the entire town comes out, whether it's at an Elks Club or a bar or whatever. 400 people show up and they're so happy and grateful to have entertainment in their small town that it's like everyone's having a good time. Everybody's there, everybody's laughing, everybody's drinking. Like they are just in the best energy and best mood. And I will stand by that until the day that I die. That I think comedy in very small towns is 1,000 times more fun than like yeah, and New York, LA is great. It's the mecca of comedy here in New York. You get comedy clubs and comedians that it's just crazy when you see some of these lineups, but the audiences have 500 things to choose from every single night. So it's the novelty of going to a place that gets entertainment once a month where they're just the excitement level is just off the charts. It's so cool. It's so much fun.
Yeah, that's great. I grew up in a smaller town called Mechanicsville, Virginia. It's, like, outside of Richmond, but I was a big fair kid growing up, and so we always yeah, it was, like, the novelty, and that's why everyone came out to the fair every year. It's,
Yeah.
like, was the only thing to do. Yeah, that's so
Right.
great. Yeah, and then speaking of gigs some more, you just did that Columbus Comedy Festival in August. How was your experience with that event? Did you meet anybody particularly interesting? Anything kinda wacky happen? How was that one?
I was only there for 1 day, so I kind of flew in, flew out. I had other stuff scheduled around it, but it was a great time. I got to see a lot of old friends. You know, I'm from Ohio, so I've been doing comedy in Columbus forever, and so I got to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a while. I'm trying to think if I met anybody like brand new that I had never met before. A couple people, but like I said, I was only there for a few hours, you know, so I didn't have a chance to really party and hang and do all that fun stuff. But yeah, it was a really good time.
Awesome. And then what would you say for you has been kind of the if you could narrow it down, which is gonna be hard, but has been kind of an essential element of successful stand-up for you? In terms of your performance, in terms of, like, coming up with material and writing material and then performing the material, what has kind of been the essential element to finding a
Like
successful process?
like what works?
Yeah, in terms of coming up with your material. Like, what's kind
I
of your
have
essential
I have
step?
a kind of a backwards writing process where generally I will find a phrase or a punchline or a word that I know I want to use, and then I will build a joke around it. So a lot of times I'll have the punchline first and I'll be like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but that's where we're ending. And I will take that on stage. So I'll be like, okay, I know that this is the phrase I want to use. Okay. And I'll have two or three ideas of how I want to use that phrase. And then I just kind of find it by talking it out. I'm a conversational comedian. I'm not like a one-liner comic or anything like that. Mine's very stream of conscious, very flowy kind of a deal. So Like right now, I'm writing a joke about being a first generation liberal. And that was the phrase, was first generation liberal. And so I need to build on that phrase and how being a first generation liberal has affected me and what it's like, and being a, like that. It's brand new. I just tried it on stage 2 nights ago for the first time. But that was the phrase. And so that's kind of what I do is I'm like, okay, here's my basis, here's the idea, here's the premise. Now let's go on stage and talk it out. That's just me
I
though.
feel like no, yeah, I feel like that kind of process is really beneficial in the like online age that we're in now. In terms of putting content out online, that's kind of one of my other questions is how has navigating the whole internet, social media firestorm been? Have you had any sort of noteworthy online interactions, good or bad? Or do you have any warnings to anybody? I know with AI and everything recently, it's been the performance industry has been struggling with that a little bit. So just want to know some of your thoughts on that element of it.
For me, I being a type A person, I've had to get over myself a lot when it comes to putting stuff out online. I'm a pretty heavy perfectionist, so I had to kind of throw my hands in the air and just be like, just put it out there. It doesn't matter. Not every joke is going to kill. Not every joke that I love, people are going to love. And actually, most jokes that I love don't do well online. Some of my least favorite jokes have the most views and the most shares. And I'm like, this joke sucks. Like, you guys don't know anything. And but at the end of the day, you don't know who it's going to hit and how they're going to receive it. So you just kind of got to throw it all against the wall and see what sticks. And for someone who's a type A personality, that's incredibly difficult to just be like, screw it, I'm putting it out there and something's going to happen at some point. That's very, very difficult. And that's probably been the biggest hurdle of online for me, is feeding the content machine and still putting out quality content, but understanding that there is no rhyme or reason. There's no way to control this. There's no, I think anybody who tells you, oh, I'm a social media expert or I know how to do this to the algorithm, you're a liar. There's no way to know. It changes every 15 minutes. So just put out what you think is funny and what you like and go from there.
Yeah, avoiding the comment sections, like don't look through them.
I
Don't
am
get yeah.
so bad at that. That is one of my probably biggest pastimes, is digging into the comment section and replying to every single person.
That's how
I
you grow an online community though. I mean,
I'm telling you,
yeah,
man,
it's fun.
so many people are like, never read the comments, don't do this, don't do that. I'm like, that's the first thing I do. That's most of my day, is reading the
Wake up in the
comments.
morning, read the comments. Yeah.
Yes, and clapping back at people. I mean, it'll get to a certain point. Like I have 2 videos on Instagram right now that are over 1 million views. I'm not going to go through and respond to every single comment. But within the first 24 hours of a video being up, I absolutely will. That's all I'm doing. Every hour or so, I'm checking and I'm going back and I'm responding to people.
Good to know. You want to interact with you, respond within, turn on the post notifications, get a comment under there. You'll get a little
Dude, I
conversation.
1,000%. I respond to every troll, and I know I shouldn't, and it probably stresses me out more than I need to be stressed out. But whatever. What else am I
Okay.
doing?
There you go. Yeah, well, thank you so much. I have a couple kind of fun random questions to wrap us up with.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so just a quick one. What's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh God, it depends on the mood, man. You know what I really like? There's a song by it's a country song called Grundy County Auction. That's a really fun one, but that's just for me. Nobody else ever likes that song. Um, Bring the House Down. It has to be done at the right time in the right audience. But if you can figure it out, End of the Road by Boys to Men has never failed me. If you have about a 30 something, 40 something audience and you start singing End of the Road around midnight, people are just drunk enough and they want to scream along with you. That's a fun one.
That's so funny. You're still in the like, how am I gonna work the crowd even when it's
A
karaoke?
thousand percent, dude. I'm not gonna. And that's why I'm like, I did the Grundy County auction in a bar that was a Christmas, a 24/7 Christmas themed trailer in Nashville,
Wow.
Tennessee. So yes, John Michael Montgomery's gonna work down there.
There you go.
You gotta know
Yeah,
your
good stuff.
audience.
Of course, always. And then here's my next one is if you could go back and be born in a different time, when would you want to be born?
Go back and be born in a different time.
A
Man, I don't
different era.
know. I don't know that I would be successful in any other era. gotta
Fair.
love it,
I have a lot of
dude.
friends who say that people are like, "I was born in the wrong generation," and my friends are like, "No, I was born in the right generation. I need TikTok scrolling time in my
Not even
life." Like,
that. I got a loud mouth, man, and I have a tendency to pop off. And the older I get, the more blunt I get, and it catches people off guard because someone will say something or whatever, and I'll just be like, nah, I don't like that, or I don't agree with you. And I don't know if that's just getting older and being more confident and comfortable in who I am. But I feel like if I were around in the 40s, that'd have gotten me smacked, you know?
yeah. So loving the modern lifestyle. There you
I
go.
like the modern lifestyle.
Awesome.
I like the night, you know, it's so funny. Jackie Cation has a bit where she talks about, you know, it was a simpler time that back then. It was a simpler time back then. And I am nostalgic for like the 90s, but the whole point of her bit is you were a child. That's why it was simpler. So when I think back to like the 90s and how easy everything was, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be a different generation or a different era. I kind of just want to be 9 again, you know,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
with no bills or cares or like, you know what I mean?
Responsibilities. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pokemon is the biggest worry in my life right now, you know?
That's so fair. Yeah. And then next one is, what conspiracy theory do you think is the most true?
Oh, these are fun. I like hearing
Mhm.
about conspiracy theories. I have members of my family who are hardcore conspiracy theorists. Um, which one do I think is the most true?
Yeah, is there one that you kind of buy into that you're like, you know,
The ones that
I kind of get
I
it?
into, I think everybody buys into, where it's like, you know, that there actually is a cure for cancer, but the medical industry is keeping people sick to make money. Like, I buy into the ones that aren't fun, you know, like, but my favorite ones to like hear about, I love the off the wall ones. Like there was one that went around on TikTok recently that was that the sun was replaced during the solar eclipse, that it was replaced with an LED light. And I love that one. That's a fun one to go down because there's no reason or rhyme behind it. There's no like, why would anybody want to replace the sun? And it's fantastic to see the lengths people will go to deny global warming. I love it so much. Um, but
That's a
those are the
funny
ones.
one.
It's crazy. So like, those are the ones that I'll find myself really getting sucked in. Like, what the hell are these people talking about? Um, the Denver
That's
airport
just too
being,
much free time. How are you coming up
dude.
with the sun?
Yeah.
That's funny. What's your
So
Denver airport one?
oh, that it's the head of the Illuminati and there's like secret tunnels and meeting spaces and stuff like that. That one's kind of fun to like look into.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I got one more
Okay.
wacky one. If colors had flavors, which would be your favorite?
Colors had flavors.
Yeah.
Blue,
What do you think it would taste like?
blue raspberry. I'm associating it with any
Uh,
candy or Gatorade or anything I've ever had.
it's okay. Purple is supposed to be grape, and it never tastes like a grape. So sometimes,
Yeah. Anytime I reach for a candy or a drink that's a color, it's usually blue or purple.
nice. There you go. All right, and then the last thing I got is like, what's kind of coming up for you? What's next on your radar?
I'm pretty much in New York City the rest of the year. I've got a couple road dates coming up, but I moved my whole life to be here, so I'm kind of got to be here. So just kind of hanging around and bopping around the city and trying to do literally whatever I can to get some tickets sold. And so, yeah, you can just check out like Mary Santora comedy on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and then MarySantora.com is all my upcoming tour dates.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you again so much for finding time to talk with me. You were great to speak to. Maybe you'll find me in your Instagram comment sections in
Ha!
the future. But yeah, good stuff. Thank you so much, Mary.
Thanks.